Minister, I want to ask you about the scoping report into the death of Shane Farrell that was insisted on by the previous Minister, Charlie Flanagan, over 2 years ago. It's almost 11 years since Shane O'Farrell was killed in his hometown of Monaghan, and there has been a litany of failures by the state in terms of delivering justice for the O'Farrell family. And I think this delay is compounding that injustice, and I'd like to ask you to give us a clear time frame about the delivery on the delivery of that scoping report, which is way too long overdue.
Thank you, Cathaoirleach, and thank you, Deputy, for raising this issue. As you'll be aware, obviously, retired Judge Gerard Houghton has been conducting the scoping exercise into the tragic circumstances surrounding Shane O'Farrell's death. The purpose of this exercise is to advise as to whether any further investigation or inquiry beyond those already carried out is necessary, and if so, to advise in the form of such investigation or inquiry and indeed its terms of reference. I'm informed that the Judge is on the verge of completing the scoping exercise and has begun the process to compile his final report. So this is, I suppose, progress, or it is a change from the last time we spoke, where there was still information to be gathered. What I'm told is that the information has all been gathered, so he started and begun the process to complete his final report, which will then be presented to me. I'm told that will be very shortly. I don't have an exact time frame, but it has certainly moved on to the last stages where the report is being compiled. Once that process is complete, I understand the Judge will submit it to me. Once I've received the final report, the advice of the Attorney General will be sought in publication. I will again maybe conclude just by restating that in the clearest possible terms, that neither the Government nor my own department is in any way opposed to the possibility of a further inquiry or an independent inquiry into the case, if that's what is recommended. But I think, as the Deputy will understand, I can't and I don't maybe want to preempt the outcome of the work that has been done. I appreciate it's going on much longer than people would like, and I know this has been hugely challenging for Shane O'Farrell's family. I would like to see it completed as quickly as possible. I'd like to not be answering questions in here where I'm not able to give you a direct time frame, but I am assured that it is at the very final stages and that I'll hopefully have it in the coming hopefully before the summer term. Thank you.
Yeah, Minister, I acknowledge that your answer is progress from the previous answers that we got, but on the verge of completing is not an answer in terms of a time frame, and then it has to go to the Attorney General for his view, and that will be sought before there's any publication of the scoping report. Now, I'll just remind people generally in the public that that scoping exercise was sought as a part of the journey for reaching the truth for the O'Farrell family, but it has actually come an odyssey on that journey. It's become an enormous task to get this over the line, and it cannot be overstated how painful that has been for the family and how anxious they are to see the report. So regardless of whether the Attorney General recommends further inquiry or not, this won't go away because of the determination of the family and those of us who support them. There will be the continued demand for a full public inquiry, and that is based on the fact that we know that there's been a litany of failures of the state, and it was only due to the family themselves putting in freedom of information questions that many of those failures of the state and of the justice system have been exposed, and more or less twisted the arm of the state to have this scoping exercise, which, as I just repeat, has been inordinately delayed.
Thanks, Deputy. I suppose the very fact that this is an independent inquiry and the fact that the Judge and retired Judge Houghton is independent in the work that he is doing, I'm not able to give you the time frame, I suppose, because I don't have it, but I do I do know that it is at the final stages, so I know that's perhaps not much comfort at the moment without having a set time frame. What I have seen since coming into the department is the other Section 42s, I think they take longer than anybody would like or have ever thought that they would take, and perhaps I think that's something that we need to look at into the future if we're looking at further types of inquiries or independent inquiries that are led under the Section 42 process. But obviously this process has started. I think we need to allow it to continue and to be completed. I fully respect the independent work of the Judge, and I have no doubt that when it is finalised and when the work is done, that I will get it as quickly as possible. I'd obviously like the advice from the Attorney General to come back to me as quickly as possible as well, so I'll be asking that of the Attorney General when it is presented to him, if he can give me advice in terms of the publication, but also the recommendations that are in it and where do we go from here, and hopefully we'll be able to respond to yourself, but most importantly to the O'Farrell family in that regard. Thank you. I
mean, I have to accept your bona fide on it, as I've already said, But it is almost 11 years since this terrible killing of this young man, and it should never have happened, and we all know that. Had justice been applied as it should have been applied, the killer would have been in custody and wouldn't have been loose on the road to carry out a hit and run killing in the way that he did. So there are very many questions that need to be answered by the state and the justice system, and hopefully the scoping exercise will have attempted to answer many of them. But let's say the Attorney-General sits on it over a long period of time. How do we in this House manage to push this result forward on behalf of the family, and indeed on behalf of many families who sit and watch these kind of inquiries, because they too have felt big injustice done in cases that appertain to them. So I think there's been a compounding of insult to the family by the delay in this report, and some indication of how quickly the Attorney-General will allow for the publication of it, or not, and he may not, but that needs to be given in a tight timeline. And of course I'm going to say, obviously, he absolutely must.
Just to place on the record again, as Minister, I have absolutely no objection, and my department has no objection, and the Taoiseach has put on the record that he has no objection on behalf of the government to have a full public inquiry. I haven't seen the work done to date. I don't know what's in the reports. I haven't begun any scoping exercise because I haven't seen the report, and I don't want to preempt what's in it. It may recommend it, it may recommend not. I don't know, but I think it's important that we allow Judge Houghton, or retired Judge Houghton, to continue the work that he has started, to make sure that that process is complete, and then if we need to do something more afterwards, that we will. There's a lot of issues, Deputy Smith, as you have said, to be looked at, and I have no doubt that all of the issues that have been raised and the terms of reference and everything that has been set out will be addressed by the judge. In relation to the AG, all I can say in my own experience with him, he's not a man to wait about, he's not a man to delay on things, he's very efficient in his work, and certainly if this report is presented to him, I know that he'll come back to me as quickly as he possibly can on it.